So what happens if you're involved in a collision? So we try to use the word collision. We try not to say, this is what I learned in driver's ed. We try not to use the word accident. You've heard that, a car accident. Accidents are things that necessarily can't be avoided, whereas collisions are like 100% avoidable. Any kind of traffic collision could be avoided by good driving behaviors and good attention and good vehicle maintenance. So the term you will likely see on an exam is actually collision. If it's talking about a collision, that means two vehicles bumping into each other like a car crash. But you'll see the term collision, such as this. These vehicles got into a collision. And so what happens if you are involved in a collision? There's certain things you must abide by. And this could very well come on your exam. They may ask you, what do you have to do? So every driver must remain on the scene of a collision. You can't just hit somebody and then be like, oh, I don't see any damage, see you later, and then just keep driving. You might have heard of the term hit and run. That's a kind of slang term or a common terminology, but what you'll see in the book is failing to remain at the scene of a collision. That's the actual term. And you can get demerits for that and a hefty fine. So it's against the law to leave a collision. You must remain there until you get things sorted out. So you have to report all collisions to the police where if there was somebody that was injured or killed, you have to report that, any serious injuries. You have to report a collision if there was an overall damage exceeds $2,000, and that's combined. Like here, in this situation, that very well likely could be over $2,000 in damage. It doesn't seem like much, but vehicles can get quite expensive and can definitely exceed that amount. Also, you need to report to the police if there was any damage to public property. So example, hitting a traffic sign, knocking over a parking meter, hitting any kind of public property damages, you need to report that even if they are less than $2,000. And that's for road safety, right? Say you were to knock over a stop sign by accident and then you don't tell anybody that that stop sign's down. Now, other drivers that are using that intersection, they don't know that they're supposed to be stopping, and that can create more collisions. So even if it's less than $2,000, you still need to report any kind of damages to public property to the police. So those are the three main situations where police do need to get involved. Otherwise, if it's like a little fender bender or a tiny little bump, nobody got injured, there was minimal damage, maybe it was icy and you kind of slid into another vehicle, but there was no major damage, then the two drivers can actually, they can swap information. So here, they don't have to necessarily go to the police, but they do have to talk with each other and share each other's information. So if you are in a collision, give assistance to anybody on the scene and ask if everyone's okay. Exchange your information with the other driver, which means your insurance information, record your name, your addresses. Even if there was any witnesses involved, get their information as well. Exchange your insurance details like the policy number, your registration information of your vehicle. It's also really important to record the date, the time, the location where it happened, any kind of weather conditions. Was it icy? Was it sunny? And any other details you might remember of that situation. Also, notify your insurance company right away of that you were involved in a collision, and because then they can start processing whether it's a claim or finding out what happened in that situation. It helps them get prepared, and that's why having all of these details is really important, because an insurance company will ask you, where were you, where did this happen, what time, all that kind of stuff. So the more details you have, the better for you to answer all those questions and have all the information of both your drivers, him and the other person, even passengers. If there was a passenger, it's even helpful to have. It's not necessary, but if they're willing to share their information about passengers, that's helpful too, because the insurance company could very well ask, was there any other people in the vehicle? But the big thing is, do not discuss who is at fault. If you are in a collision situation, it's not The insurance company is the one who's going to determine who was at fault anyways, or who is to blame, whatever the case may be. So there's no point in you arguing about it at the scene of the crime. No matter what, the insurance or the police are going to determine the situation. So you as drivers arguing, even if one of you guys agree that someone was at fault, or it was your fault, or you were going too fast but you didn't brake in time, well, you just sped out in front of me, like it can turn into an argument versus, and it's not a very productive situation. So don't try to argue or try to get the other person to admit that they're guilty. Like, it's not a court of law. That's not how things work. All of that will get sorted out afterwards. So it's not helpful or useful or beneficial to try to argue about and determine who is at fault or who's to blame for the situation. There could have been a lot of things that contributed to it.